Maybe it's a little over dramatic.
Who, why me? Now none the wiser, wearing hats made of product, table, racketeer, and driver wears our purse. It truly is a curse.
Hello. If you're watching this video, you probably watched my 10-part series on the River to River Trail through hike, and if so, thank you. If not, I would highly suggest watching that first before watching this video, because this probably won't make any sense if you do. This is a summary video. It's December 8th, so it's been almost a month since I went back out to the trail. It's been over a month since I went back out to the trail, but it's been almost a month since I got off the trail. And I've given myself a chance to heal up and, let cooler heads prevail. I finished editing this video, so it gives me a chance to go back and look at my experience and reflect on it and think, boy, I probably should make a summary video too, because boy, those last videos were really negative. And I got to thinking, I was like, I don't want to discourage anyone from considering hiking this trail based on my experience. So I feel like I need to explain kind of where I was. I'll start out with saying February of this year, I weighed 400 pounds, and that's no joke. As heavy as I've ever been. And I set myself on a path to lose weight, which I did through diet. And around May or June, I was losing a pretty good amount of weight. And I told myself, if I get down to 320 by November, I'm going to do the River to River Trail. Not expecting myself to actually get down to 320 by November, but, as circumstances seem to have metered themselves out, I ended up doing it. I also ended up with a serious amount of PTO time left over this year from work. And I had to use it, or I was going to lose it at the end of the year. So all the cosmos basically aligned perfectly for me to do this through hike at the River to River Trail. So I'm like, all right, let's do it. So I went out, bought myself 10 dehydrated meals and a few other things. I'm like, let's go do it. November 4th, went out there, started the trail, and immediately blew myself out. And I realized, wow, I completely did not plan this out. So after a week, I downloaded the trail guide and did a lot of research, and I came to the realization that I'm going to do daily drops, and plotted out the entire way where I was going to do the drops, where they're going to be, how far apart they were going to be, where my camps are going to be in between, and everything was meticulously planned out. It was planned to perfection. Where did it all go wrong? But before I get to that, going back to the weight thing, I have to express that a lot of what you saw in the video and a lot of what you see in a lot of my videos has to do with my overall weight. Like right now I'm 310. I intend to continue to lose weight, but it's just an ongoing slow process. But being of the size that I'm at, doing trails like this isn't really easy. It is much easier for someone who weighs 150 pounds, 180, 70, 80 pounds to hike 20 to 25 mile days. Like that's something that they can do and it doesn't really affect them. Whereas me pulling those amount of miles, I'm literally destroying my body to push that far. So that's, in a nutshell, that's what I did. I destroyed myself to try to get off trail sooner. And that was my cardinal sin for this trip. I should have stuck to the plan. I should have done the miles that I prepared and stuck to the overall plan. But I got so caught up in this idea of getting off trail sooner that I didn't afford myself that opportunity. I mean, I was supposed to get off trail Monday. I was burning rubber. Do I regret it? No. But you got to see the results. You got to see what it did to me mentally, physically, and the state that it put me in, and the negative feelings I had about the trail that really weren't justified in a lot of cases. And that's what I want this video to kind of explain. And that's why I prefaced it by talking about my weight and overall general physical size and capabilities, because that plays so much into how I interpreted things and how I felt at the end, and also just generally the oversights that I'd made throughout. There's a lot about the trail that just isn't great. I'll start off by saying this. The blazes suck. They just flat out suck. They need to get some money together from the federal government or the state or somebody and send somebody out to blaze that trail properly, because it's just bad. It's so easy to get lost, and you end up off trail a lot of times just for no other reason than the trail turned and there was no blaze to indicate it. And that sucks. That really takes you out, especially if you've already hiked like 15 miles and then next thing you know, you're a quarter mile off trail because you didn't see a blaze telling you there was a switchback. A very close second to that is they have a very misguided perception on through hiking. As in, they expect that people will just be out there for 10 plus days hiking this trail. No one through hikes for 10 days. You usually at the most hike for 4 to 5 days and then get off trail and maybe stay at a hotel or a hostel or something like that, just to give yourself a reprieve and a break from the trail. Let your body heal up a little bit, get a decent meal, maybe do some laundry, and then head back out. What you don't do is stay out for a week, if not more, at a time. And I don't think they're aware of that. My conversations with Bart Lane, who shuttled me from Grand Tower back to Garden of the Gods on my second, attempt, he was surprised, by what I was telling him. It would just improve things so much better to have more instances to get off trail and take a reprieve. One of the other aspects is that it's an equestrian trail. It is, when you're out there, you realize very early on that more money is put into the equestrian side of things than any other. So it's pretty much dedicated to horse traffic, and the horses pave their own way. You just have to deal with it. I mean, if you're going to actually hike it, you have to understand this simple mantra, the thing that I repeated over and over and over. They don't care about you. And they don't, because their money and their bread and butter is in equestrian traffic. And you can't fault that, because if that's where they're getting a lot of their visitors and a lot of their tourism and a lot of their money, then sure, that's what they're going to put their focus in. But if you're a hiker who wants to do this, you have to go in knowing that. And you have to know that you're going to be fighting the trail in a lot of areas, because you're going to be fighting mud pits. You're going to be fighting, clompy, horses going up the side of a hill and making giant clomp marks that you're going to have to walk around or figure out your footing so they don't go in it. And they will. I mean, it happened in a video on this trip. And horses, they walk on 4 feet, so the paths that they take and they forge far different than what a person would. So you have to understand that the trails are not made for you. They're made for horses. So it's going to be more difficult than many other trail systems that you may be familiar with. The other thing is the road walking. I didn't mind the road walking, really. I really minded the highway walking. I mean, road walking's fine. Highway walking, on the other hand, is kind of a miserable deal, because there's traffic speeding by you at 55 miles per hour. They don't want you out there because they're afraid they're going to hit you. So they're annoyed, and you're going up these paths that go by like overpasses over the interstate. And, you have to walk on certain sides because of the steepness of the curve and guardrails on certain sides. You got to be able to jump off the road if vehicles come. So you're kind of limited in where you can go. And these cars are going fast, so it's not the greatest experience having to highway walk. But that is sort of some of the things that you're going to have to do when you're out there, and you just have to take it. Now, I'm not going to factor in the water. It's been dry all fall. We experienced it on the AT in October, and it was no different on the River to River Trail. That's why I did the daily drops of water to combat that. But I can't hold that against the trail because there was a lot of creek activity. There was a lot of creeks. There just was a lot of creek activity. So I would guess that if there's more water flow and more rainfall, you're going to see more creek activity, and then you'll have a good supply of water along the way. But again, there's plenty of areas where the trail crosses roads. And like I did, you can do daily drops and make sure you always have water, as I did. Since the trail is mostly equestrian, there's a lot of pointless up and downs, or PUDs, as my wife calls it. It's just senseless. The reality of the trail is that it's a lot of parks and wildlife preserves and natural wildlife areas, all interconnected by roads. You just keep going through these trail systems that just don't seem to be conducive to cumulative activity, I guess. They're good one-off things, like day hikes or things that you can just make a weekend around. But when you have to do them consecutively, one after another, it gets so fatiguing by the end that you're just like, why can't it just be a better path? That's why Bald Knob and Godwin and all that section, so great. It was the greatest trail of the whole thing. Well, Garden of the Gods was pretty good too, but it was just so well thought out and so well planned, and everything just gelled so well. Why can't it all be like that? Well, because it's equestrian trails. So those are the big negatives to me. It's just simple little things like that. The positives of the trail are that there's a lot of very, very beautiful scenery down there. There's a lot of great vistas, a lot of good balds. And day after day, the trail changes. Here, the environment changes so often that it's like, wow, like every day is a new experience, it feels like. So the variety of the trail is great. The people were friendly. I never had any problems with anyone. All very well natured. I helped one hunter load a deer into his truck. Had a chit chat with one bow hunter who was interested in doing the thru hikes. All the townspeople that I talked to were really friendly. It's a good general demeanor. Overall, everyone seems very nice and friendly. JoJo at the camp store at High Knob, she was very sympathetic to my plight, and she was very concerned about my well-being. She definitely didn't want me. She could tell that day I was not. Things were off, and she was very cautious about me just heading out there all willy-nilly. And she gave me a Gatorade, and the other guy that was in the store gave me $20 because he realized I didn't have cash, and he didn't want me going off and not having any cash if I need anything in an emergency. So he gave that to me. I was like, thank you. Oh my God, you guys are so unbelievably generous. I didn't know what to say. It is rewarding. It's short by standards, through hiking standards of other trail systems like Ozark Trail, Sheltowee Trail, Continental Divide, AT, things like that. It's a pretty short trail. And I think that's what a lot of people are interested in, is they're getting into the concept of doing a thru hike or a multi-day backpacking excursion. They're probably looking at the River to River Trail thinking, this is a good, easily accessible thru hike experience. Do I want to try this? I would say at this point, absolutely you should. Definitely plan it out, get as much information as you can, figure out what you're going to need and how to make that a reality. If you don't need daily drops, don't do daily drops. If there's plenty of water, just bring something. You need something. Aquamira, Sterapin, something. I wouldn't rely solely on a Sawyer. That's all I'm saying in that regard. But it's definitely worth doing. The videos that I did, I have to go back and say my negative feelings were more a result of me going against my own preparation. And by that I I had every single stop, every single drop, every single campsite, everything plotted out to perfection. I knew exactly how many miles I was going to be hiking per day, where I was going to be stopping, where I was going to get my water from, and where I was going to be eating, all of this stuff, how much food I would have, where I'd be changing my clothes, where I'd be dropping things off, where I'd be picking things up. And then I just threw it all out the window because I wanted to get done early. Whereas if I would have stayed to the schedule that I had made for myself, I wouldn't have hiked more than 15 miles a day the entire trip. And that would have only been maybe once or twice of any given day would have been 15 miles. The rest were 13. And that was by design because I wanted to make sure that, I didn't push myself too far. Now I would have got off trail Monday, but I still would have had, my body wouldn't have been as wrecked as it was doing it the way I did it. I wouldn't have been leapfrogging my own drops, I wouldn't have been leaving half my food there. I wouldn't have had as many of the water concerns as I had, because if I would have given myself an opportunity to get to camp and just sit there, I would have chilled out. My body would have kind of chilled, and I would have been more reluctant or been more likely to actually use my water to cook with. But I didn't give myself that opportunity. I was in too much of a headspace of rush through it, push through it, keep going, because I had the energy early on to do like 17, 18 miles. So I figured, well, I'll just keep doing it. And I ended up in the situation I did. And it was all my fault because I stopped eating, or at least eating as much. And I just kept putting miles and miles of it was crazy when I was going back and editing the video, seeing how the days where I was struggling the hardest, I thought I was pulling like huge miles. They only ended up being like 15, 16 miles. But it felt like hell. But by that point, I had done so much damage to my body that, yeah, of course it felt like crap. So I did it to myself, essentially. And, but I don't regret it. I did it. I completed it. I got off trail early. I learned a lot, and, it didn't discourage me, even though I said it, I was never hiking again. My wife and I went out the very next weekend and hiked. So I'm not discouraged. Would I do the River to River Trail again? No. Not on my own, at least. I've already done it. I don't need to do it again. I don't need to prove anything. It's done. Now, if Soraya wanted to do it, if she just said out of the blue, maybe she was in the same headspace I was and like, I want to see if I can do a through hike, and that seems like the easiest entry point, which it is. I want to do that. Will you go with me? Yes, of course I'll go with her. No problem. But I just won't do it myself. Because the loneliness was pretty bad. I mean, the whole reason I did this is to see if I could do the through hike on the AT. And now that I'm done with it, yeah, I think I could do a through hike on the AT. Could I do it alone? I don't know. But I feel like I could definitely give it a damn good shot. So hopefully with this video, it helps put things into perspective a little bit more after my video series. Like I didn't want to leave things the way they were. I wanted to give a little bit of more context to my overall thoughts, and definitely sort of put a different spin on my take on things, and not leave it in a totally negative light. There's some positive, there's some negatives. It's worth it to take the challenge. If you're interested in challenging yourself and it's something you've been looking at and wanting to do, by all means, do it. You won't regret it. I mean, even if you fail, you'll learn, no matter how you slice it, you will learn something about yourself, about the trail, about everything. So it's for that reason alone, it's worth doing it. So, yeah, that's it. Hopefully, you'll get out there and try it yourself. And hopefully that this video helps, repair any damage that the series did. I'm not trying to dissuade people from doing it. That's the main thing. I don't want to dissuade anyone from doing it. If you're interested, do it. So thank you, and keep hiking. I don't know.